I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, it was a grievous fault. And grievously hath Caesar answered it.
Hey everybody, Russ the Millennial Numismatist here, and I have something really special for you today. If you're not familiar with me or my line of work, what I really do, I work for a company called Harlan J. Burke Limited here in Chicago, Illinois. And we are one of the largest ancient coin dealers in the country, one of the most prominent in the world. I myself am not an ancient expert. However, I am a fan of ancient history, a very large fan. I studied ancient Rome in college, my first go-around, and I have always been fascinated with Julius Caesar, the Roman Civil War, all of those things. And so when my boss, Aaron, told me that he was traveling to Switzerland to bid on some lots, and he told me what was in some of those lots, I got really excited. And, of course, Aaron came through, and he bought one of the rarest ancient coins in the world. This is not that coin. However, it is a reproduction. This is the famed Eid Mar Denarius. Before we really get into that, first we have to get into a little bit of background. Julius Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March, that's March 15th, 44 BC. He was assassinated by a group that called themselves the Liberators. The Liberators were led primarily by two guys, Cassius and, of course, Brutus, which is where we get the famous line, et tu, Brute. Brutus and Caesar had a very complicated relationship that I'm not really going to go into because it's kind of beyond the scope of all what we're doing here. But there's a reason that in the works of Dante that Brutus occupies the lowest level of hell because he betrayed his friend. So basically what happens is Caesar has become dictator, and the Romans were very king-phobic. I like to say they were Rex-phobic. The Romans had not had a king in hundreds of years, and anybody that even insinuated monarchy was no good. They were not a big fan of it. So the Liberators assassinated Caesar in 44 BC, and this sparks a civil war. You saw a clip earlier, starting this episode off, of the fictionalized version of those events. What you saw was the work of William Shakespeare and his very, very famous speech that Mark Antony gives at Caesar's funeral. Now, after this civil war starts, it's Mark Antony versus Mark Antony Octavian, who later becomes Augustus, the first true Roman emperor. It's those two against some other Romans. It's truly a civil war. And Brutus is, of course, one of the leaders of this civil war. So basically a very long and abbreviated story short, Brutus and Cassius flee to Greece with their army, and they have to pay their army. And a very popular way for this to happen, and Caesar did it, a lot of military leaders did it, was they would take traveling mints. They would take all the things they needed to mint coinage, and they would mint coinage to pay their troops. And one of these designs that was made was this coin here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into desk view for you guys, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. All right, everybody, welcome back to desk view. So, like I said, this is a reproduction. I couldn't quite convince Aaron that I needed to take home the Eid Mar Denarius because I haven't talked about how much it sold for yet. But this is the finest known that we're talking about that we recently bought, and it sold for $720,000. That's right, 720,000 American dollars. It doesn't quite make it the rarest coin. Another coin actually just sold for a little over $4 million that took the spot from the gold version of this coin that we also actually recently placed with a collector last year. The silver versions, there's about 50 of them known, maybe more, maybe less, but there's quite a few more than the gold version. These have always been very, very rare and sought after. Even in really like medieval times, people knew these were important. And so we're going to kind of go over just a little bit of the anatomy. So this is the obverse, or the head side. And what you'll see here is a face. It's the head side after all, but it's an important face. This is Brutus himself. What's really interesting about this is one of the things that Brutus cited of Caesar trying to become a king or a tyrant or a despot was that Caesar put his face on coins, and yet here's Brutus doing the exact same thing. The reverse is the most interesting part of this entire coin. So do a quick flip, and there we are. It's a little hard to make out because, again, this is a copy. It's not the greatest copy in the world, but it's a good prop. There will be pictures, obviously, coming that are going to be a lot better. But so what you have is you have two daggers, and in the center of those two daggers, you have what we call a liberty cap. The liberty cap was a cap given to freed Roman slaves. Slavery was very, very different in Rome. It was not chattel slavery, and slaves could be freed fairly easily, and slaves could even buy their own freedom. So there's this liberty cap, and there's two daggers, and below it, you can't quite see what it says. It says Eid Mar, the Ides of March, the day that the liberators killed Julius Caesar. What this coin is really saying is that on the 15th of March, I, Brutus, freed Rome from a tyrant with daggers. So this coin is dripping with symbolism. It's absurd how much symbolism is here. It's galling, to be very honest, to think that someone that was, branding themselves as a liberator of Rome, of all these things, would then turn around and do the exact same thing that Caesar had done. All right, everybody, welcome back from Desk View. So I hope that you got a little sense of kind of the symbolism of this coin, because it truly is dripping with just incredible symbolism. It's what makes coins so cool. And again, this coin has such cool history. The coin that we bought for our client was actually owned by the Hunt brothers at one time. The Hunt brothers, if you don't know, manipulated the silver market in the 1980s, pushing it up to that $50 mark. The coin has a very long provenance. It's been known since about the 1930s. So it's a very cool coin. And like I said, it's a $720,000 coin. As I said before, there are 3 that are known in gold. And what's very interesting is that there has been some drama about the gold one. So there are 3 known, like I said, and one of them is in a museum in Germany, and it is permanently impounded in that collection. It is not coming out for sale ever. So that's one off the market. Then there's 2 more. One of them we've handled multiple times. It has a hole in it, and it is very, very distinct. It's even a little off center, and it's got a large scratch on the back. This coin has been known about, again, since the 1930s and has been in the British Museum multiple times. Most recently, it was in the British Museum until last year, when the collector that we had actually sold the coin to originally took the coin out, took it back from being on loan, and sold it at auction. And it went for well over $3 million. There is, again, one more coin. That coin kind of popped up out of nowhere in around 2008. And it had no real provenance. No one was really sure about it. And then suddenly it had a very interesting provenance going back to the 1800s in Austria, which for ancient coins is not something you see every day. So when it sold, it took the crown for the most expensive ancient coin ever sold, $4.1 million. And this is in 2020, and it was offered by Roman Numismatics out of London. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In 2023, the New York International Numismatic Fair was held, as it always is, and the owner of Roma stepped off of a plane from London and was immediately arrested by the FBI. The FBI had been conducting an investigation for quite a while. Turns out that coin was looted from Greece in the early 2000s. Now, that's a big deal. Ancient coins have to have a provenance prior to 1970, because it's a bunch of treaties with UNESCO and all these other things, and it's cultural property. It's the right thing. You can't dig up other people's history and then sell it, is basically what they're saying. So the coin was impounded by the FBI, and it is back in Greece, and Greece will not be giving it back. That coin is now off the market. So there is exactly one gold Eid Mar known. Our client owns that one. and he may or may not own one or two of these ones in silver. If you don't know about the book, The 100 Greatest Ancient Coins, which I so happen to, if I can find it, have a copy of. This was written, of course, by my boss, Harlan Burke. And the number one coin in this book is this coin, the Eid Mar Denarius. I really, really recommend you guys do a little bit of reading on your own. This is just a very quick video overview. I was just so excited to hold this thing in my hands that I had to tell you all about it, and kind of give you guys a little bit of its history, because holy crap, this thing is amazing. Again, my name is Russ. I'm the Millennial Numismatist. I'd love it if you leave me a comment, leave me a like, leave me a subscribe, and I would be forever indebted if you decided to share this video with your friends and family. Thanks, guys. Until the next time.